I am the back-end handyman. I fix things as cheap as I can, which is often all by myself. I am not a professional. May not be done the right way, but it's done my way. I assume no responsibility if you attempt the same thing and damage anything. Alright, side quest weekend continues. Now, we get to change the valve cover gaskets because he says that it smells like something's burning. Well, that's because oil on this fucking thing leaks out from under this, which is the valve cover. So, yeah, I gotta move all this stuff off the top of it. And that's just the driver's side. And we gotta move this stuff off the passenger side to clear it off. All right, so we got to take this off, which is this bolt, and bolt's down in there holding that on. And we got to take this hose off. There's a little push button. You pull on it, and then you can pull that right off. You don't really need to take it all the way off because, see, the valve cover stops right there. Here's this. You can pull that out and then pull. And then we can take this out here. Maybe that one. Oh, that one you push and pull. So there's those wires out of the way. Just take off this whole thing with these bolts and wrap it over there. And then we'll pull this hose off right here and take the spark plug cables off. And then we'll just take these bolts off. There's 8 of them, it looks like. Let me get started pulling it off. I'll show you any tricks to the trade as I go by. Pull that off to get that out of the way. There's 1, 2, 3. Now that's not the firing order. That's just 1, 2, 3. All right, and there's a bolt there. There's a really big bolt there. There was a bolt here. And there's a bolt back there too. That one, and then down there was that big one, and then over there. And then of course there's a wire right there that you have to unhook. It's on there like that, and you just stick your flathead screwdriver underneath that and pry up and pull out. Now we can wrestle this out of the way a little bit. We're getting close, guys. That one there, I'll take that off. Just take off the valve cover. Just to let you know that this hose right here is fastened down there. There's a bolt that goes in right back there on the back of this plate. And then you can take that off. You have to use a wrench, and it's a 8mm wrench for that bolt. And then you can take and push. Oh, I don't know what you do. I gotta figure it out. Oh. You gotta fit your screwdriver under that. See, it clips underneath that, like that. You get your screwdriver right there in between that, pull it over this way. And then when you have it loose, you just push it down to where that red thing goes down, and then you can pull your gas hose out. It will have a little gas in it. Okay, and then I pull off the, what do you call those? The injectors, the injector plugs. They're pretty easy. You just push on this little trigger right here and pull up on them. There'll be 3 of them, 1, 2, 3 for the 3 cylinders. And also this back one back here. I don't think I really need to do that one because we're just kind of moving it out of the way. And then this one here, I undid these 2 bolts up here. But we also have this. Go ahead and pull that. And you just push in that. There's a little yellow tab. And then you just take your screwdriver. And you push, I took it and pushed it in like that. See how it makes that yellow part move? Center up a little bit. Pulls right off. Now we can get this out of the way. Now I can get my 6 bolts off. There's a bolt back there. Right there. To get into that, I'd move this stuff out of the way a little bit. But there we go. Wiggle it out. And we'll pull out our valve cover. Okay. That's what it looks like when it's off. Try to make sure that you don't get dirt and shit in it. You have to clean this surface up because the valve cover goes along that. Back there is where it was leaking. And you can see why. I mean, these would have been much better as aluminum covers, but they're plastic, and they did a groove in between there that this gasket sits in. It'd be better if it just had a flat gasket and this was aluminum and it didn't have a groove at all, that it just screwed down onto it. But I'll go ahead and get this gasket out and we will clean that surface. Okay, now here's the old one. You can see that it broke right there. Over time it just get hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. Get brittle. And they lose their compatibility to seal up. And something I didn't show you before is these bolts right here. They're these little rubber washers. You gotta change those out too, or else those will leak. When I take the valve cover off, I just go ahead and take them out completely. And now they fit down in these holes. So when I go about putting it back on, the one that was the trickiest, this one here, I'll go ahead and put that one in, but the other ones I will put in after I got it on, because I don't want to scratch up this surface with the bolts hanging out of the bottom of the valve cover. I don't want to scratch up that surface, so I'll get one in there, make sure it don't scratch, and then I'll get the valve cover over there and put the other ones in. This isn't really a sponsored leak, but I got these Felpro gaskets off of Amazon. And I'll put a link down in the bottom in case you wanted to buy them. I mean, pretty generic. Probably the most common kind there was. They were cheap and affordable, so that's why I got them. And the reason you want to change this out is when your cab starts smelling like burnt oil, it is definitely an issue. So that means that it's leaking oil somewhere. And luckily, it's just the valve cover gasket, not the head gasket or something like that. Alright, I got it all cleaned off for the most part. I mean, took some carbon choke cleaner and just squirted it on a rag and rubbed it around there, got all the grease and oil off. Now this is on there. It fits down in there. I put the side that has the double. Like you can see that, how one side has 2 little lips. I put that up into the valve cover. It makes more sense that the lips would go up in the plastic to seal off around the edge of it, and this would go down on the bottom. And as you can see, I got my 1 screw on there, in there with the new rubber. So I'll go ahead and get this on there, and then we'll put the other ones on. Okay, now as for the actual tightening order, I couldn't find anywhere for the V6 online what order to tighten these in. So I did the bottom one, the top corner one, this diagonal one over here, and then that one, and then that center one. I know anytime there's a gasket, you're supposed to take them all down about the same consistency at the same time. And it's 89 inch pounds. which I got me one of these cheap Lux Vaughn torque wrenches. This is the inch pound. You see, I actually got it on 90, but hey, that works. For you don't want to get them too tight because you'll break off the bolt or strip out the threads. You don't want cross threaded or anything like that. So, but there, those are tightened back on, and then you put the rest of it on like it came off. Like, I'll go ahead and put these spark plugs things on, and then I'll put these hoses back on and all that. Now, sometimes doing one weekend side project, you come across another weekend side project. See that on top of that spark plug? Now I get to change plugs and wires. A couple of those, these are some old ass spark plug wires. So, I mean, they've been on there for a very long time. They got kind of bonded to the top of the spark plugs. I'm gonna run with that because that's the tip of the spark plug cable, which is up in there. Those two came off. Yay. One project leads to another, of course. I'll put this side all back together, let you see it when it's done, and then we'll switch to the other side. Alright, I just wanted to come back on here and say that the only reason I didn't give the tightening order and the tightening spec, torque spec, for anything else but the valve cover is because pretty much where the valve cover is, the gaskets where they meet, the hard surfaces, is the only places that you really got to worry about where they tighten up. Because if you tighten up one side, like let's say you tighten it like this, it makes the valve cover gasket squish down like that, and it gets an uneven tension going across that gasket. So the spec and the torque are only for the gasket purpose. Now, on spots where, like let's say these for instance, the tightening the torque of these bolts is just dependent on to make them stay. The torque on the bolts on the valve cover gasket is just enough to not squish the gasket too much, not pull out the threads, not fucking break off the bolt. So, I mean, the torque specs on something with the gasket on it are a lot more important than the torque specs than something like this or like these, because you get these tight, you're pretty much just wanting to make sure you don't break the bolts off, which if you're doing torque specs on everything else, the feeling is you'll be able to feel when it's about to break. But yeah, you just torque up the parts that have the gasket to a certain torque to make sure that you don't crush anything too much or mess up the gasket. Now, the rest of them, you just torque them till you think they're tight enough that they won't come loose. And if you don't want to torque them down too much, or if it's too thin of a bolt, you feel like it's going to back out, you can put some Loctite on those. This will just be a video about changing the driver's side. It's about 3:30. The oldest kid, he don't want to stay here and help me work on the car and stuff, or do what he was supposed to today, then I'm not mad at him. I'm just like, hey, if you want to act like you want to get stuff done for me, then I'll act like I get stuff done for you. Well, I got some stuff done for him, but I only work till about 3 o'clock because I have to clean up, eat, and go to the swimming pool with my kid too. But that was the driver's side. Not too bad. A little pain in the ass. I think the hardest thing about it, the driver's side, was getting that bolt down in there that goes to this hose, because you have to use an end wrench, and it wasn't that hard. And you got to watch them spark plugs, because you pull them off, you pull the tip off the spark plug cable, and then them spark plugs won't work anymore. But that's okay. This should no longer leak oil, and we will see if it does or not after we start it up. Thanks for watching. Please like my videos.